There we go. Alright, let's check if I'm live. Let's see if this is actually working. Okay. And what else? Live chat. Okay. Alright. Let me see here. Looking at my phone. Oh. Okay. Okay. Just woke up, so if you hear me grunting and stuff, it's because my back is really sore, and I've been trying to do some stretches at the beginning of the morning. All right, we're live. We got hi from Chile. Hey, what's up? Thanks for joining. What's uh-oh. Uh-oh, I'm gonna butcher this name. Rogelio Castillo. Okay, I'm not gonna try and say the last name, sorry, but welcome to the stream. I'm just gonna wait a little bit and try to get a couple people in here and just see, like, I don't expect to have huge crowds for me having a live stream. I am kind of confused. It's making me. Oh, hey, hi. How's it going, Reinhard? Good morning. It is morning right now. I am currently in America, so it is morning. I don't know why it's making me turn my iPad lengthwise. It's not allowing me to just film it widescreen. So I've got this silly setup right now that I don't like at all. But I think my sound's probably coming in good and everything. I think I'm pretty clear. Do let me know. This is my first time setting this up, so let me know if it's not clear enough or the sound is garbage. Maybe I think next time I'm gonna just do this through my computer. It's Xenoglaive. How's it going, man? Richard, how's it going? Oh, okay. Cat wants to jump on my lap. Go ahead, bud. You can see a little cattail here. Let's see who we got. Proxy agent. Wow, a lot of people joining all of a sudden. I'm kind of shocked. I got that. Oh, 9 people. We'll start at 10. We'll start exactly at 10 when we got 10 people in here. I didn't expect to make it into double digits, or I should say make it beyond double digits. So when I get 10, we'll just get started. I am reading your messages as we go. How's everybody doing this morning? I hope everybody's doing okay. I hope you're all having a day off today. Oh, it says we're at 11 people now. That's weird. I'm trying to watch the chat on my phone, but on my actual live stream it says there's 11 people. And I already got one thumbs up. Hello from Algeria, Ahmed. Nice. We've got a very international group watching today. Osoroshi Monday, not quite. I think I don't think I'd ever want to do one on Monday. Mondays are already scary enough, don't you think? Japanese cults, yeah. Well, I want to address something that I talked about a long time ago. With, I guess I've done videos on Aum Shinrikyo before. If you don't know what that cult is, that was a cult led by Asahara, who did the sarin gas attacks on the trains a long time ago. I mean, this is quite a few decades back, but I'm sure many of you knew when this went down. It was all over the news. There's still people who are affected by it today, who literally like lost all use of their body. Like, I remember some of the saddest stories I saw was this cult that decided they wanted to end the world, that they were going to start the apocalypse, went onto trains in Tokyo. I believe, I could be wrong about this, so don't quote me on this part, but it was the Yamanote line. And they pretty much took bags of sarin gas, which is like a nerve agent. It's like the equivalent to like mustard gas, which, if you don't know how bad that is, it's literally been banned by the Geneva Council in war. Like, you can't use stuff like this in war anymore. If you do, you're like an international criminal at that point. So they took this stuff that's like literally banned by the Geneva Council, threw it onto trains, stabbed it with umbrellas, released it so that it would, spread all across the trains, and hundreds died or were forever had their lives altered because they became paralyzed by it because it literally like it destroys your nerves and stops you from being able to function. It just starts like eating away your brain and your nerves. And there's like people, I mean, there was like literally like, college graduates on there that were about to go to like school to finish their graduation for being like doctors and dentists and stuff like that. And now they're just like bound in wheelchairs, paralyzed from the neck down because this cult decided to do stuff like that. Did you hear about missed Japanese women who have conscripted themselves to the military? Missed Japanese women? Like, what? Like, as in Stephen King, The Mist? I don't. What is? I'm really confused. Anyway, so this is a horrible group. Their leader has already been put to death. Um, oh, that there's been a lot of women put into the military recently. You mean like in the self defense force? I that wouldn't really shock me too much. I know I've heard that the self defense force is having a lot of trouble recruiting recently. But anyway, so Asahara, the leader of this cult, was put to death already. He was killed. I want to say it was like this only happened 2 to 3 years ago that he was executed. And his daughter and the cult that still exists, by the way, the cult still has like some remnants left. It's kind of changed its name slightly. I don't know exactly what the new cult is called. I'm not going to worry about it or try to find it or give it any publicity. She came out and said that he never did this, that he never orchestrated this attack, and that the American military were the ones that executed this attack, which, what? Like, and she just said this with like no evidence, no, she just like, after the execution happened, she was quoted by reporters who interviewed her and like, what do you think about your dad finally being executed? And she's like, he was innocent, he never did this, and this was done by the US military and the Japanese military working together to kill their own civilians, which, yeah, okay, sure, whatever. Whatever makes you sleep easy at night, I guess. But this cult was covered by a lot of different YouTubers, Nexpo, and another one, mamamax. And if you haven't heard recently, mamamax is kind of in a lot of hot water for not really having a lot of evidence for the quote unquote CP hunters he's been going after. And if you don't know what CP is, I can't really say it on stream or it'll get my whole channel, this video, knocked off or shut down. I could even like cancel my stream right now, but it's spelled PEDO, hunting, okay? I think I can probably spell it and I'll get around the algorithms that way maybe. But he supposedly goes after these people, and I remember him doing one about how first he looked into a game that was created by Shinrikyo, and there was not a game actually created by Shinrikyo. The video game was created by a different indie creator who made the game to mock Shinrikyo. It's like really goofy about like you collect bath water from the cult leader to sell online and stuff like that. And it really mocks the cult, and it's kind of like very dark humor. And the game was actually pretty well done. It was done like almost like Earthbound or Mother 3, if you know what those games are. They're kind of like what's more of a modern equivalent? Undertale. Think of Toby Fox's Undertale. It was done in that manner, where you're like a pixelated RPG character walking around an overworld map and doing quests for Shinrikyo, the cult. And it was totally meant to mock the group, but he said that the group created this and that this was to try and recruit people for the cult, which means he didn't do his full research and find out completely what the origin of this game was. So I remember calling him out on that video. I remember leaving a comment under there. It was like, you probably should research this a little better. You know, you got like the pronunciations right and everything like that, but this was actually a mockery of this cult and making fun of its leader because people hate this guy. Like everybody over everywhere in Japan hates this cult. They hate this guy. Like he did horrible stuff to the nation of Japan. It was one of its biggest tragedies was this sarin gas attack. So it's not something anybody wants to parade around as being cool or excellent. And this game wasn't made by the cult itself. It was made by an indie company mocking this cult. And then he went on to a second video after that one because that video did so well. Because it does come across as really creepy. If you look at the game, it does come across as really creepy. And then he came up with a follow-up video called rolypoly.exe. And he goes through this whole convoluted thing, trying to say that now the leftovers of the cult, which there really is leftovers of the cult, that now they have come out with a new child's game, a child education game. Like think of the old games you used to play on computer called like Math Blaster and stuff like that. That this is a new type of game that the cult has come out with to recruit child members to the cult. And then he says like all this goofy hacking stuff that doesn't make any sense. It's not like actual hacking. He's like, I had to get a different OS to operate on this game, and I traced the IP address of its creator to this contact that matched this contact, and finally I was able to contact him on Discord, and he is a member of the Shinrikyo, and his name is, and it was like Asahara spelled backwards, and he's like, of course I knew this because it's Asahara backwards, that's the user's name. And where he really messed up was he, first of all, just decided that this cult would be able to speak not only English, but perfect English. And anyone who's lived in Japan, spent any bit of time in Japan, knows that the kind of English Japanese people learn is like polite, weird, robot level English, where it would be like, hello, nice to meet you. My name is blah, blah, blah. Like, things that people don't actually say. But of course, this supposed cult member that he talks to on Discord is like, hey, what's up, man? What are you doing? What are you up to? And it's like, no, nobody, especially this super esoteric niche cult in Japan who probably has zero gaijin members, knows how to speak this fluent street English. Like, it was so good. I was like, okay, this is not an actual cult member. And then he's like, so I chatted him up and I pretended to be. And it's like, first of all, that cult never recruited anybody in any other country other than Japan. They weren't interested in children. The cult, if you research the history of it, they were really interested in getting people who were like high level education to join them because they wanted them to help them manufacture this whole apocalypse. So they went out of their way to get like extremely well educated scientists and doctors and chemists and stuff like that's how they were able to make sarin gas. That's not something simple to make. They were gonna make like rockets and stuff and like take off from the planet to leave after the apocalypse happened. So they had like engineers in their group. That's what they were interested in, and that's what they're still interested in. They're really interested in getting people who have high level jobs because number one, they provide the money for the cult. You like pretty much give up your entire salary to live at the compound that they're at. They've never been interested in kids. They've never been interested in other countries. They've never been interested in gaijin members. So I was like, what is this goofy stuff? And at first I was like, well, maybe he's just doing this as like a skit. Like this is supposed to be like a funny skit about like there being a fake reason for them to create a goofy game. And it wasn't. He was using this as like for real, like he's this hunter of people who are trying to kidnap children for a cult. And I thought, this is not cool at all. Like, first of all, you're pretty much trying to like say a country is part of some heinous crime that's international, and saying that these people within this cult could possibly contact your children, which is just like raising red flags that don't exist. And you're, adding this weird myth and lore to a dangerous cult, like giving them kind of like an advertisement on your video by like fetishizing you hunting them down. It is so weird and so disgusting and doesn't help anyone and gets the name of the cult out there again, which, I mean, okay, I kind of understand it for the video game. That is a really weird video game. But why let people even know that the cult still exists? And why try to fearmonger off of saying that they would hunt down your children and try to get them to join the cult from a different country? And then why try to role play as a member of the cult speaking perfect English? This doesn't help anybody. This is just goofy and silly, and it's making a mockery of something that's a really dangerous, horrible problem around the world. Like, human trafficking. I don't think there's a lot of room to be making jokes about that. I mean, even very edgy comedians out there, you don't see a lot of human trafficking jokes going around on stage. And that's what this was doing. This was just like making a whole mockery of that situation. And I had to write a message in that one where I was like, first of all, no, this is not this is not an actual Japanese person talking from Japan trying to recruit children to join a cult in Japan. Their English is like natural English. It's perfect. It's written with like street lingo and stuff like that Japanese people just aren't exposed to, sorry, unless like they've lived or were born overseas. You would be hard pressed to find any, even English teachers in Japan don't know a lot of this stuff. Like they don't know that people walk up to each other and just say what's up. Like if you let people know that in Japan, they're like, how do you usually say hello or greet someone? You just say what's up. And they're like, oh, really? I never even heard that before. I thought it was hello, nice to meet you. And you're like, no, nobody's talked like that since like the 1950s. Well, what are you talking about? And then he ends the video by saying they threatened to kill him for exposing this cult in their attempt to recruit children. And he said, they sent me this kanji. And it's like, koros. And like, he doesn't even get it right. Like, he uses the wrong, it's like, korosuzo. That's like, no one would talk like this. Like, no one would suddenly switch right from like talking normal English or talking like plain polite Japanese and suddenly say korosuzo. Like, it's like from 0 to 90, like that's not how Japanese people talk. Like, unless you were like a Yakuza member, no one would talk like this. So it just got even more goofy. And then he said, and this was the name of the mother who pretended to send me this fake child education game. So then he was also saying that like the mom who pretended to be a mom from America who spoke perfect English was actually a Japanese mom that was part of this cult and was sending me this to try and spread the game to recruit more children. And it didn't make any sense. The whole and I'm trying to explain this and it sounds convoluted because the whole video is convoluted. He took the video down eventually. He's taken a ton of his videos down. He's taken down the Shinrikyo one too. And I think the reason you're seeing so many of these videos taken down is they just don't make any sense. Like, you can't pretend to actually hunt down people and expose people when all you are is just making sort of a farcical movie version of what you think a pedo hunter would do. Like, this is so goofy and so weird, and it's not something that you should try and make a horror video out of it. Like, you shouldn't try to make, I don't know, a recreation, a dramatization, especially if it's never happened before, and especially if you've never actually gotten anybody arrested or actually done any real work to stop, people who abuse kids. Like, this isn't something you make a fun, silly, fake mockumentary about. These are like really serious subjects. Like, you don't use this, and this has been his whole thing the whole time, that he's the hunter. He goes after these people, and if other people on YouTube aren't doing that, then what is their purpose on YouTube? This should be their only thing that they do, hunt down child predators. And by the way, that like deep voice that he always uses in his videos, it's fake. It's a what do you call it? A modulator? A mod? It's a distortion. It's like a distortion pedal. I always think of like a distortion pedal for a guitar. It's pretty much a distortion that he puts on the mic. And he told all his friends that he got surgery on his vocal cords to have a deeper voice, which I mean, come on. And now he's being called out. He's being called out by a ton of people. It's been finally proven that he's never actually been doing any of this like the child predator hunting that he says he's done. He's never exposed anyone. He's never gotten anybody arrested. He hasn't stopped at any like human trafficking rings or anything like that. And I knew this from the beginning. I thought like this is just goofy mockumentary style fetishizing predator hunting videos that have a lot of loud music, a lot of loud sounds, a lot of choppy video editing, him over dramatizing himself. There's like one where he stabs a hamburger because he said, I'm like hungry to find predators. I just thought like this guy is so goofy. Like this is not the place and not the theme to be adding these kind of silly cuts and edits and goofiness to, you know, there's horror videos and they're great. You know, like there's Scare Theater, there's Nexpo, there's Nick Crowley, there's stuff like this. And they, you know, they edit a bunch, they put these cuts in there, they cover some serious subjects, but they do it in a classy way where they keep an even tone. They don't overemphasize their voice. They don't try to talk about how they want to get involved in these cases and hunt down and be a vigilante in these cases. They just present the information they have and all the footage they have. And I think that's a classy way to go about presenting some very dark subjects. What you probably shouldn't do is number one, say that you're involved in stopping these dark subjects from happening and actually taking a stand and gathering a Discord group and hunting these people down and actually putting them in jail. When all you're doing is just taking maybe some stories you read about or heard about and repeating them, making them a little bit more edgy with clips and music, and then saying that you're actually involved in stopping this kind of stuff. Like you can present the cases, that's okay. You can raise awareness. I think that's great. You can do it in a way where you're not using like a fake voice and being overly dramatic and then also saying that you're part of the crew trying to find these predators. It just it makes a mockery of everything. It makes a mockery of the abuse these people went through. It makes you a person who is literally using these other people's pain as a source of monetization and entertainment for those who don't understand that you're not actually involved. All right, let me go. You guys have been hitting me up with a bunch of stuff while I've been talking, and I need to stop for a second and actually go through some of this and read your comments. How many we got? We got 21 people in here. That's crazy. I did not think I would get much past 10. Okay. Let me scoot up a little bit. I'm trying to do it without disturbing my kitty who's in my lap here. Okay. All right. We got, just wanted to say it's nice to see you doing well after the long break. Hope life between Japan and the US is working out. Yes, it is. Thank you, Rekit. Cool topic. All right, thank you. Sounds twisted. Yes, it does, Richard. I agree. Never been to Japan, but my buddy was there with the Air Force and said that even people around the base spoke that kind of robotic English. Yeah, like, look, in all of Asia, you know, we're talking about like the Philippines, Singapore, even like Sri Lanka and stuff like that. The lowest English literacy rate is still Japan. They're the lowest. Like Vietnam's got way better English and way better English education than Japan. It's just a fact. I have my own theory for why Japanese people don't get to learn great English, but we'll talk about that in another video. Let's see here. Scientology seems very similar. That's true. I'd agree. Yeah, Scientology kind of seems like a bit of a cult. Although I guess I don't want to go too deep on that, or they're going to send all their lawyers after me, right? Michael says, yeah, it made no sense. Children were mentioned because that's what about the children is how things get popular. Yeah, it's so true, Michael. You're totally right, man. Scott, I'm self-employed and I want to move to Japan. I'm curious what the cheapest area of Japan is. I don't make that much money, but enough to live off of. Well, I mean, you'd want to live in the countryside then. In general, prices all around Japan are pretty much the same unless you get deep into the city. Like you're in Tokyo, things start to skyrocket pretty quick as far as rent, and even food is pretty expensive. Yeah, yeah. Zeno here is saying I would avoid Tokyo like the plague. Yeah, if you don't know, Zeno actually does live in Japan. This is the friend who him and I have our little clothing shop going. Quick shout out, ratingravens.com. Check it out if you get a chance. I think you'll like what you see on there. It's got a little bit of both of our designs. Short plug in the middle of the video. Yeah, Osaka is better. Yeah, I agree. We're both Osaka people, and Osaka is cheaper, but you still get that big city feel. The only downside to living out in countryside areas is you're not going to enjoy the convenience that Japan has. Like, the convenience of the city is probably, I'd say, the biggest selling point of Japan. There's no other place on earth, I think, where you can walk downstairs and buy your entire set of groceries and everything at a convenience and then walk back upstairs to your apartment. That's one beautiful thing about Osaka. That and you've got 300,000 places to get your hair cut at. I don't know why, but Osaka can't stop making cosmetology places. Like every other store in Tenoji, at least, was a haircut place. I don't know what's up with that recently. When I was in Japan, I remember staying in Shinsekai, and years later, start playing the Yakuza games. Now I want to go back. Oh yeah, isn't that fun? I remember visiting Okinawa, and I went to the fish market there in Okinawa, and then I played, what was it, the second one? The second game where the guy goes in there with like six revolvers, like he's got like one revolver in his mouth and two revolvers in his hand, and I don't know, like two tied to his legs or something like that. And then after that, he ends up in like starting an orphanage in Okinawa and going through the fish markets to beat up Yakuza. And I remember going through there and being like flabbergasted at how realistically they had recreated that area. And then there's another one they made in Osaka where I think it's like, it's not Dotonbori. What is the area that they make? I forget what it is exactly. I want to say it's either like Nippon Bashi or I can't remember. It might be Shinsai Bashi. But I just remember thinking like this is so realistic. You can even go into the conveni and they have like all the same drinks and everything. It's around Dotonbori. Yeah, yeah, because that's right. You see the crabs. But I remember, yeah, I think you don't cross the bridge in Dotonbori because I don't remember seeing Glico Man. I've just gotten way too esoteric there. Probably everybody's like, what are all these words he's saying? What is he talking about? Anyway, if you want to see what Japan looks like and you want an accurate depiction via video game, check out the Yakuza series. It's incredibly well crafted as far as them recreating. Now they changed the name slightly so that like they don't get sued, I guess. They aren't called Dotonbori or I forget the place in Tokyo they try to copy. I think it's Shibuya, right? They try to copy Shibuya. The one in Osaka is Yakuza 0 and the one in Okinawa is Yakuza 3. Yeah, I can never remember. I left my PS3 back in Japan. People aren't as crazy as in the Yakuza games. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Just so you know, like there's not men don't tend to pick up bicycles and whack other men in the face on the streets. Like that doesn't actually happen in Japan. So don't worry. The amount of violence that goes on in that game. There's also no underground sewer-based fighting ring and secret underground city. So don't try to start climbing around the sewers of Osaka hoping you find like a sumo wrestling ring. You'll just end up in human waste. That's it. Yeah, with the wild side quests. Yeah, those side quests are really out there. I don't know. I want to also play the Judgment games soon because a lot of those go around areas that I know too. So I want to get into that series. Okay, I had a couple other things set up to talk about. Oh, yeah. Here was a crazy. Oh, man. Every time I move my back here, I get a big shot of pain goes through my back. My back's really messed up right now. One other crazy thing I read the other day that kind of it bummed me out. I've talked about this before that the population of Japan is going down, and that what was it by 2050 the population should be cut in half. So we're at like I think what 123 million people or 127 million, and it's supposed to cut in half by 2050. So Japan's new goal is to be at 80 million as far as the population by 2100. which that's 2100, I should say, not 2100, 2100. That's their new goal. And that was just like really sad to me. I was like, oh no, like you hope to be at 80 million. That's, I don't know how benefits and Social Security is going to work for old Japanese people if we're at 80 million by 2100. Like that seems like unfeasible as far as how the retirement funds would work. Retirement funds are already insanely low in Japan. I mean, there's people living off of like $300 to $600 a month, which I don't know if you know how much things cost in Japan. That's not possible to live off of. So I hope I hope that number goes up. But a lot of the reason for this, a lot of the cause for this is there's a new generation in Japan that does not want to work the same 12-hour days that they watch their families work. They don't want to work these insane, like, oh, a short day is 9 hours and an average day is 12 hours. They don't want to work these anymore. They don't want to lock themselves into a 35-year loan that maybe their kids have to take over to be able to pay for a house that's not the greatest house on earth. And look, I completely understand. I feel like the working hours in Japan are absolute insanity. And a lot of the time when you have these like 12-hour working days, not a lot actually gets done. It's been proven again and again and again that making people work insane hours doesn't up the progress of any company or the output of any company. It actually starts to tire people out, and you run into things like karoshi, which is death from overwork. And I think this is finally starting to affect Japan in the most negative way possible, which is people don't want to get married and start working these jobs to support a family that they never get to see. Because how the hell do you ever get to see your family if you're working a 12-hour workday? I mean, I taught a ton of kids. I taught for 15 years in Japan, and I taught a ton of kids who like barely knew who their fathers were because their fathers never came home. And every game you ever play in Japan, it's always like you talk to your mom in the game and the father's not there. They're always like sending you letters from their job afar because that's how Japan really is. Like the dad is like constantly gone from the home. He almost lives at work. It's nuts like how much people have to work to be able to afford simple things like, oh, I want to drive a car. I want to have a mortgage on a house. You know, this generation seems to be more satisfied with working like three different part-time jobs and living with their parents and having full disposable income to buy expensive fashion, which I think, you can place some blame on the generation if you want, but I think a lot of the blame needs to be put on Japan itself from working people to death, from working people into not having a family life. It's on them. Like there's no way around it. You need to actually restrict the hours that companies make people work, and they do this again and again, where they're like, "Now the prime minister, he said lights off at 5 o'clock. That's right. Everybody needs to go home, and all the lights are being turned off in every company around Japan. And no longer will there be 12-hour workdays." This is never enforced. There's so many goofy laws that Japan announces that just never take effect. Let me give you one example of another time Japan made this like bold statement where they're like, "Things are changing. Listen up, people." In 2011, they announced all throughout every prefecture in Japan that all new English teachers at Japanese junior high schools and high schools will now have to speak fluent English and have to be fluent English speakers. And if they can't, then they will be replaced by a gaijin who is a fluent English speaker. That never came close to happening. Um, I don't know who decided that that was going to happen, how they thought that was going to happen overnight. You don't just suddenly turn people who can barely speak a word of English into fluent speakers, especially when a lot of these teachers are like in their 40s and stuff like that. And look, I'm not mocking being in your, I'm 40 years old myself, okay? But you have trouble learning a new language, especially one that you've never been exposed to or gone abroad to learn when you're in your 40s. Let me tell you about it. I've experienced it, okay? Me learning Japanese. If they suddenly said, now tomorrow when if you go to school and you're going to teach Japanese, Scott, you need to be fluent at it, and you need to be on a native level, and it just wouldn't happen. Like, I mean, you got to be like, okay, send me back to Japan for another 5 years and put me in an intensive study, and maybe I'll come back and be a little bit closer to sounding natural, but I'm just not the greatest language learner. So I don't know. They always make these goofy announcements like this and then do zero to enforce it, and they're kind of like, well, that didn't work. Shogunai, nothing can be done. You know, like it's just why even make these announcements then? Why create these like imaginary fantasies where suddenly everything corrects itself? You know what I mean? Like, I don't get it. So if they really are going to do this, if they really are going to try and bring the population back up to 100 million at least by 2100 instead of saying just 80 million, then they need to reduce these work hours to make them reasonable work hours so people are like, oh, I get to have a family and actually see the family I have? Wow, what an idea. That's crazy. What country is it? Isn't like Finland? They have like a 4 hour, not sorry, not 4 hour. They have a 4 day, 8 hour work week, and they've shown that that like upped the progress of all their companies like a ton. Don't quote me exactly on that. I don't even know if I got the country right, but it's been shown that like if you give people time to like cool down, to have cool down time to like come back refreshed and raring and ready to go, they tend to work a lot better. It's crazy how people have energy to work once they've had time to rest. If there's one thing you'll notice when you go to Japan is Japanese people sleep anywhere. They can sleep anywhere. Like you will see them falling asleep all over the place, and that's because these poor people are worked way too hard. You work yourself a 12-hour day, guess what? You can just nestle yourself down at a pillar underneath a subway station and sleep a good 8 hours sleep, even though you're cramped up like you're in the fetal position when you've been working a 12-hour day for 7 days a week. It's insane. Anyway, let's get back to some comments. I like reading you guys' comments at the same time here. Let's see what we got. Um, okay, I'm going to go back up a little bit and read through. Okay. Um, People in Osaka seem to be more outgoing than people in other places. This is very true, Reinhard. You are correct in saying this. The saying goes that if you ask for directions in Tokyo, you'll get someone who will turn around, give you the cold shoulder, and not speak to you. If you ask someone for directions in Osaka, they'll give you directions, walk you to the place, and also tell you about a great deal they got on their t-shirt. Yakuza games are fun, but if you're a completionist, finishing them takes forever. Yeah, I don't think I've actually finished any of the games. So I agree with you on that. What is it? What is the name? Thrustavius. Okay, I like the name. It really depends. The countryside doesn't have many jobs to offer. Well, this person was saying that they already are self-employed, and that's why they wanted to choose a cheap place to live. But you are correct in that, Rickett. There's not a lot going on as far as jobs in the countryside. Also, get ready to make sure you know how to speak perfect Japanese because nobody's going to try and work with you with any kind of English in the countryside. They're going to just be like, "What are you trying to say? Don't try to talk to me in English." Let's see. Zeno says they are doing nothing for people to incentivize them to have children. This is very true. It's still super hard to find a kindergarten to put your kid at. It's super hard to find, child care for a kid that's preschool age. And they're making the cost of living high enough that both parents need to work, but at the same time telling moms, oh, stay home and be a housewife. You can't have both, buddy. You can't do both. Let's see what else we got here. I've just closed my comments again. Great job, me. The drinking culture in Japan is also very unhealthy. Yeah, this is true, but I don't blame that on the government. I think I don't know. There's when you work that many hours, I feel like the nihilistic drinker in you comes out. Um, let's see. From experience, if it was possible to have a job from 10 to 4, that is the most productive time for everyone. I agree, Zeno. That's true. Keep your employees happy, give them free coffee. Yeah, happy employees and good work gets done. I can assure you of that. Um, Let's see. I've seen so many feet popping out of bushes. I've seen so many feet popping out of. But what do you mean, like homeless people exist? Is that what you're talking about? Are the high suicide rates in Japan due to work-related stress? I mean, it's a little bit of everything. We've talked about this before. I think, first of all, let's be realistic here. Japan is rated 13th in the world for suicides. Okay, it's not the highest. There's always that myth that Japan has the highest suicide rate in the world, and it's not. It is one of the Baltic states. What is the one? I can't remember. It starts with the E. You guys help me out there in the comments. There's like a Baltic state that starts with an E, and I can't remember it off the top of my head. And I think they have the highest in the world. And also South Korea, way higher, way higher. Okay. Also, way more brutal work conditions in South Korea. I think the reason you see so many people, Estonia, that's the one. Thank you. No, Estonia's not the highest. We don't have the highest. Sorry, sorry, Danny. Danny's like, we don't have the highest. Get out of here. Unrested. What the heck are you talking about? Latvia. Sorry, Latvia. Okay, there we go. I knew it was somewhere up close to the Baltic states. I was like, it's one of those. And it isn't also like Belarus has like an incredibly high one too. But I know Japan's number 13 at this point. It used to be much higher, especially it was super high. Close enough. Thank you, Danny. I apologize if I got anything wrong. Okay, I'm not trying to call any country out. Okay, I Japan did have one of the highest for a long time because you had the 90s era bubble pop, which the economy during the 90s in Japan was like insane. Like people were making cash hand over foot. Like the economy was absolutely nuts with how high it was. And when that bubble finally burst, it's kind of like what's happening in China right now. Everybody had all their money in like apartments and condos and things like that. And once it went bust, like a ton of people, their companies went bankrupt. They lost all their money. Like everything they had worked super hard for went away. And obviously the end yourself rate went high. It went super high, like to the point that I think like Japan was second in the world during that time. And that was just due to the loss of money. Some people had work. They'd like dedicated their whole lives to building up giant businesses that just went bust overnight. Apparently, during that time, you could make insane cash as an English teacher. Like, you were making anywhere from 3,000 to 4,000 a month, and I'm talking in dollars. And that would be a lot. That would be a pretty decent wage as an English teacher. English teachers made like crazy cash back then. Now you would be lucky. You'd be lucky to find a job that pays much over 2,000 a month as an English teacher in Japan. It's gone down so low. By the time I left Japan, the jobs that were being offered on things like Gaijin Pot and stuff like that were just so ridiculous. I just thought like who would be able to work this and survive in Japan? Unless you've been with a company for a really long time and they've slowly upped your wages, how would you be able to survive at this point on these low wages? I mean, a lot of the friends I had there at this point were working multiple jobs to be able to like raise a family to survive. It was yeah, Zeno, you're a bit lucky. You've been with the company for a while. That's why you're doing okay. But man, it was it was bleak. By the time I left, I was just like, this is crazy. Like as a teacher here in America, I'm working as a teacher in Florida, and Florida has one of the lowest pay rates in all of America, and it's still nearly triple what I would make in Japan as a teacher, as an English teacher. I mean, it's just nuts. Like it there there just wasn't like any good wages left anymore. My company that I had, it was struggling near the end because English had become a luxury, and because the economy is so bad in Japan right now, I was losing students left and right because the first thing you take away when your economy goes bad is luxuries. So I had 12 students. That was like when I hit 12 students, I was doing good. I was flush. I got out of the red really quick, which was great. And it stayed at 12. And then we had COVID. That was rough to go through for my company. I had only had the company for I think like 3 or 4 years at that point. And then suddenly we hit COVID. Luckily, the government backed me up with that. They helped me out economically with that. And then after COVID, the economy bombed because you had COVID and then you had A lot of people never talk about this, but the Tokyo Olympics destroyed a lot of the economy. Japan flubbed the Tokyo Olympics. They totally screwed up. They didn't let anybody come into the country. They had like nobody watching it. They had no audience there. They built all this stuff all around Japan, all these extra booths, all this giant stadium, all these ceremonies they paid for and everything like that, and zero audience. Like, the reason your country always tries to get voted as the one having the Olympics is because it pours cash into your country. Tons of people show up, they buy tons of merchandise, it blows the economy up. What's the opposite of what would happen if you paid for everything to be built in your country to be ready to house all these people and all these athletes and this massive audience, and then they never showed up? It's the equivalent to paying for the most exorbitant party ever and nobody comes. Nobody brings any gifts, nobody brings any, like, you're just left there with the bill. And that's what happened. And not a lot of people talking about this online. Japan's economy is in the trash. Like, uh, by when I first got to Japan in 2007, they were the second strongest economy in the world. It was America and then Japan. It went below China, and now it's gone below Germany. All right, it's dropped down a bunch of notches in just a short amount of time. I mean, I was there for 15 years, and this has happened in like less than 2 decades that it's dropped down this many notches. That's a big drop. Each one of those drops is huge. A lot of these other countries, they have way, way lower GDPs, but they're not dropping notch after notch after notch. I mean, imagine you're second place, and now you're not even on the, bronze medal winner anymore. You're fourth place in a lineup of GDPs. Like, they're out of the race already. It's crazy how much they've let it drop, and it's because they made some really stupid decisions. I mean, I love Japan. I love the people. I love the culture. I love the food. I love everything about it. But I can't say they didn't make some really dumb choices when COVID happened. They closed the country out for way longer than other countries when it came to tourism and stuff like that. The entire prefecture, not prefecture, the entire set of wards that sell a bunch of stuff in Kyoto, where they have like all these different places where they sell all these arts and crafts and everything. The whole ward went completely bankrupt. The mayor got fired because he didn't have any kind of budget to support anything there anymore. Like, the roads were falling apart. The electricity was going off in buildings and stuff like, because he didn't budget for them having zero tourism, and Japan refused to open up tourism way longer than a lot of other countries did. So then they took an even bigger hit. The whole country did. So everything started to become less and less. The employment rate went down to 4%. That's crazy. That's like double the unemployment rate. Since I got there, it was 2%. Now it's 4%. That, you're like, oh wow, that doesn't sound like much. Like, Spain's got what, like 33% unemployment? Yeah, but Spain also has like a lot of under the table jobs that people get paid and stuff like that. There's not like a lot of under the table stuff going on in Japan because everything in Japan is regulated and backed up with paperwork. So when you see 4%, that really means there's 4%, and there's a ton of unemployment going on in Japan. It was really rough to find new work. I was starting to be like, okay, my company's not doing as well as it was at the beginning. I'm going to try and get a second job. I'll start to look at what they got to support it. And the job offerings were just like bleak. They were just like, I was like, this is insane. I'm not going to work 8 hours for this measly, measly pay. It was pathetic. So that was one of the other things that did push me to move to America. I was just like, I need to make, a bigger wad of cash for my family. The biggest thing was I wanted to bring my son over to try out American school because he was struggling kind of with the Japanese system. But the other big thing was just like, this is ridiculous. This is nuts. Like, if the economy keeps going this way, I'm going to have to bring my family out of Japan so that their entire workload doesn't become worthless internationally. All right, let's jump back into some comments. We got 32 people in here now. Wow, 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 wow. That is crazy. Okay, let's go back into some comments here. What do we got? All right. Okay. I heard that in stations in Tokyo, people are so used to it that when it happens, they just get annoyed that they will be delayed now. Oh, with people killing themselves, yeah. Yeah. They just have like things. What is the thing that it always says, like, passenger is incident? That's that's like the kanji they use. It's passenger obstruction. What does that mean? Did they trip over the tracks or something like that? What happened? Passenger incident did someone come onto the train and was too drunk? No, they jumped in front of it. What does your son think of the U.S. and school kids? He's surprised at how chaotic the school system in America is. Like he cannot believe like some of the stuff kids in America get away with doing. And yeah, I gotta agree. I mean, I'm teaching it at the same time that he's going to school. I think he enjoys that there's not a billion hours of homework after, so that's good for him. That he has like more free time to just be himself and be a kid. I think he enjoys the fact that there's no cram school after he finishes regular school. But I think he's also kind of shocked at like how undisciplined some kids can be in school. And I'm sorry to say that. I gotta say that as like a teacher here. I mean, sorry, kids are way more undisciplined compared to kids in Japan, which they're probably too disciplined. So I don't know. You need to find some kind of balance. Um, let's see, what else do we got? What's up, everybody? Happy Monday. Hey, Ninja Dude, thanks for joining. Okay. Hey, Fudlow, thank you also for joining. Sometimes, when the late Shinzo Abe was PM, it was meant to happen that all public sector workers had to be able to take their 2 weeks off per year. Oddly, it wasn't enforced. Yeah. So, another situation where they're like, oh, you know what? Like, people actually aren't taking their vacation. We should make sure that actually happens. Never enforced. They just like make up they make new rules, but they're more like suggestions. They're like, hey, people around the world are saying this is kind of bad. We should do something about it. Yeah, we should. Let's do this. Is anybody going to enforce it? Nah. The 2021 Olympics, yeah. COVID destroyed all that. Yeah, sadly. Let's see. Japan's debt is too high. Japan's debt is too high, and the way the Bank of Japan works is simply insane. Printing a bunch of bonds, a bunch of government bonds, and then having the Bank of Japan buy them all out will not increase your country's GDP. It does completely the opposite. It destroys all interest rates, which, okay, super great for mortgage owners and loan owners and stuff like that, but horrible for your GDP. I don't know how they think that's ever going to dig, like, that's like, oh, we're really deep in the trash here. Let's make a trash bag out of trash. Like that's I don't know what they're thinking with that plan. Um, let's see. Japan hasn't recovered its tourism. That's true. There's still like a big deficit. They have the best public services in the world. Yeah, I will say that's one thing I love about Japan. I miss about Japan. Actually, that was one thing I was going to talk about. I want to talk about, people kept asking me the question. They're like, why do you think life in Japan is way more simple than it is in America? And I'll get into that after I read a couple more of these. Um, they're thinking of raising taxes again. Not surprised about that. Um, how has America changed now that you live there and see it every day? Do you think you will return to Japan permanently or come back and forth like you planned? Um, I I may eventually return to Japan. Maybe after I retire one day, I'll come back to Japan. Um, now I own a house here, so I got to pay off the mortgage. So I can't really imagine myself going back to Japan to earn enough money to pay off a mortgage in America, seeing as the yen itself is like becoming more and more worthless daily. So I'll probably be here forever. I know my wife plans to come here after my eldest son finishes high school. So, as horrible as that sounds, waiting 6 years for my wife to get here, I may have to just do it. I'll probably live between the two countries. I don't know. You know what my dream would be? That I could get some kind of job that was like remote work, and then I would probably go back to Japan and pay this place off, and then travel between the two places at my leisure instead of I gotta wait for summer every year to travel here and enjoy my house. I love my house in America. I love it. I love having a yard. When my son came here from Japan, he studied every single day by laying in the grass and like reading his books that he had to study for class. And like for him, that was the most amazing thing ever because owning a house with a yard in Japan is super rare. Like it, you would have to be an outrageously rich person to have a giant yard to be able to I've got a lake out back. There's ducks that fly in and out. I can see nature everywhere. Um, you know, I would, you know, I love that. That's amazing. It's amazing that I can give my son the chance to do that, to just like roll around and play in the grass. So I don't ever want to give up this place that I got here. I love my house here. I love the fact that I can walk into anywhere, talk to anybody, and pick up groceries off the shelf and read all the ingredients on the back. You take small things like that for granted. And I also am really happy that I have a place that if any sudden disaster happens in Japan, my wife and my son can come here and they're safe. They have a house. You know, they're not homeless in Japan because there was an earthquake or, you know, something worse. Who knows? Or, you know, North Korea decides to drop a missile on Japan. You know, or if the economy just gets so bad that, you know, there's a massive recession. All right, let's see. Um, let's see. What else do we got here? Passenger injury at track level. Yeah, passenger injury at track level. Undisciplined kids, dude. We have an entire school dedicated to kids who get expelled from other schools. Yeah, that's true. I don't. Does Japan have the equivalent to that, like a school for expelled kids? They don't have schools for expelled kids, but they do have schools for kids who are like at the lowest like learning level. There's actually like mangas even made about that. If you ever want to read a manga that's really funny, it's called Chromati High. I highly suggest it. It's a seriously funny book. Um, Hello from Australia, K Fuji. Hello. All right, here we go. He's got all the stats. Suicide rate by country. Lithuania, number two. What was number one, Mike? Why did you start with number two? South Korea, number three. See, I told you, South Korea. Guyana, four. Kazakhstan, five. Belarus, six. Hungary, seven. Japan, eighth now. It's gone back up, guys. I was wrong. It's not 13 anymore. Latvia, nine. Oh, Latvia's below Japan. Um, Republic of China, 10. I Wouldn't Republic of China, well, I don't know exactly how that consensus works, but Slovenia, 11. Sri Lanka, 12. Sri Lanka? Sri Lanka, you're so tiny anyway, man. You better stop that, man. You're not going to have anybody left. And Russia, 13. Okay, interesting. Very interesting. How do negative interest rates work in Japan? Does that cause deflation? I don't think they're actually like, are they at negative levels of interest rate? I don't think they're actually on a deflation. I know China's in deflation right now. I think there's just like a zero as far as like interest rate goes. Like, I mean, I paid off loans on my school and I paid off loans on my house, and like the interest rate just like never changed. It was just like a really long payment. How will Japan's economy look in 30 years? I don't, unless something major happens. There's all these things that people talk about, like how Japan should change, what they should do. I think one of the most amazing things about Japan is they are a hardworking, sturdy, strong-minded, willful people. But one of their weaknesses in that is they are also incredibly stubborn, okay? And change comes incredibly slow in Japan. My friends and I always used to say this about Japan, that if it's broken and it still works, don't fix it. Like if it's, there's even broken things that like they kind of work, they still don't fix it. Like for example, keeping records at the ward offices on paper, and then the ward office burns down and they lose all the records because no one there ever learned how to use a computer and they kept everything on paper. This kind of stuff happens in Japan. That's obviously a broken system if you could lose like people's entire identities and records. Or let's look at their new social security system. They've got their brand new social security system called My ID, or My Number, it's called, not My ID, My Number. And there was a scam going around where people were asking to look at your My ID, and then they were just copying it and like signing you up for all these credit cards and everything like that. And they had never put anything in place to stop something like that happening before they made this whole system. And it's just like, that's obviously broken. You need to fix that right away. Like that, stop doing this, Japan. And they'll just be like, we'll look into it. And then maybe 10 to 15 years later, they're like, yeah, you know what? This really isn't working. We got to finally change this. Like that's one of the problems with Japan, that like if it's broken, why fix it? Like we've been doing it this way for so long. Why fix it now? Like even things like they have problems with using too much electricity, Well, Japan refuses to use insulation in houses. Like nothing is insulated in Japan. They also refuse to use central heat and air. And their reasoning behind this is that earthquakes would mess up like the vents and everything in apartment complexes. And that's why they refuse to use insulation or vents for, central AC and, central heat. But there's central heat in Hokkaido and there's central air condition in Okinawa. So it is obviously possible. Those places still get earthquakes and you don't hear about their entire AC was screwed up by the earthquake. But all throughout the rest of Japan, they still use space coolers, which are way worse to be using for air conditioning a place. And they refuse to use insulation, which is way worse for energy conservation. And TEPCO refuses to like acknowledge any of this. That TEPCO is the whole electric-based company that you know supplies tons of electricity around Japan. They just they just ignore it. They're like, yeah, well, it's kind of broken, but like we've always done it this way. So, as getting back to your question, how will the economy look in 30 years? I think not good. I think Japan has a problem moving quickly with change that even if it will help the country, they have to sit down and have like 1,000 panels about it and discuss it. Like, did you ever see the Godzilla movie where like Godzilla's attacking Japan and like it just keeps destroying Japan because they keep having all these council meetings and nothing ever gets done and things are getting more and more destroyed and they're like, oh, we should have another government meet. That's really how Japan works, where they just keep having meetings after meeting after. If you ever worked in Japan, you'll notice this too, where like you'll have these useless meetings like every 5 minutes that just get nothing done. People talk about like their trip to Disney World at the meeting. You're like, what are we doing? And they're like, well, we're at work right now. We're doing work stuff. And you're like, no, you're talking about your like social life and using this meeting time to get absolutely nothing done. What are we doing here? So stubborn is the problem. I mean, look at World War II. Did they want to give up? No, they started to like melt down pots and pans and like recruit anyone they could to fight. Like they ran out of like resources after we like built tariffs and stuff to like block them off from even getting resources to build planes and tanks and things like that. And so they started taking like the pots and pans away from like everyday people to melt down the metal from that to make more weapons. Like they're really hardcore. I mean, like this is the good thing about Japan. They have like a never give up attitude, but sometimes there's things you need to give up to allow change to happen. You know what I mean? Do you understand how I'm? Yeah. So I don't know. Let's get back to some of these. Let's see. Let's see. Okay. The Tokyo Olympics and how it was dealt with reminds me of a line of Heath Ledger's Joker. Nobody worries when things go according to plan, even if the plan is terrible. Yeah, that's true. Japan loves their plans. Even when the plans are terrible, they're just like, we've made a plan. We got to keep the plan. That's the plan. We don't stray from the plan. And even if like you bring up like a really good point, like you're like, yeah, but I mean, this horrible thing is going to happen. Like we would have times where they'd be like, we've scheduled sports day for this day, and I'm like, well, actually, it says there's going to be like a major storm that day. Probably we should do it on another day where it's like not wet and muddy and cold and miserable. And they'll be like, no, we've already scheduled it for that day. The parents have already taken off from work. We have to have it on that day. And then we have it, everybody's miserable, the kids are covered in mud, it's dirty, it's not fun, it has to end early because the storm gets too dangerous and everybody has to go home and the day is ruined and sports day is never finished. Yeah, we said this like 2 weeks ago when we looked at the weather forecast. Why did you do it today? Because that was the plan. Yeah, that's I like I said, Japanese people, the tenacity to get something completed, the strength to get something completed, it's incredible. It is definitely an advantage for them. They can set out to make a building and have it done in like a week. Like whereas in America, like especially when America fixes roads, why does America take so goddamn long to fix a goddamn road? Like have you the construction lasts for like years, it seems like. In Japan it's like, oh, we're gonna walk all through the night, every night, through this whole week and have a million people out there working on this road and even redirect traffic and have a second mini road built so that they can get around this road that we're blocking off and we'll have the road finished in like maybe 72 hours and it's done and it's good and it's perfect and there's no potholes and Japan's roads are really nice. But in America it's like, oh, I don't know, we gotta make sure this happens and then we gotta fix this part of the road and maybe we'll block this part off today and kind of get some of this done. Oh, this other road here is kind of getting torn apart because now everybody's using this. Well, we'll just leave the potholes in there. Like it's, that's their strength. They get stuff done when they put their mind to it. They're like, this is gonna be done, and it's gonna be done fast and well. But sometimes they're doing that for things that don't need to be done. Let's see here. Um, I am making 3D movies of interesting horror stories. Any recommendations? Horror stories from Japan? I'd say check out the manga called Red Book and check out some of the short, like sort of urban legends in there. I'd say that'd give you some good inspiration. Greenland is technically number one, but it's part of Denmark. Oh, is that for like the suicide rate? I did not know that. Let's see. Human damage incident. Human damage incident. That's the one. Yeah. Red Book, huh? Yeah, yeah. Red Book. Check it out. There's Red Book and there's Black Book. Both of those have really good, scary stories in them. I was impressed. Is there a large class divide in Japan like in Western nations? No, I would say there actually is not. That is one really good thing about Japan. You know, people complain about Japan having high rent, but I would say now compared to the States, rent in Japan's really low. Food prices in Japan are really low compared to what they are in America now. I cannot believe that when you buy fast food in America, if you buy a McDonald's meal for four people in America, it is nearly $50 now. What the hell happened? You could buy like a full set meal for four people in your family in Japan, and it's still going to be like 20 bucks, like 24 bucks, maybe that. I don't get it. What happened with food prices in America? They're outrageous now. Inflation's insane in America now. And no, there's not really a huge class divide. Like housing in Japan is pretty good for the most part. Even homeless people, when you see homeless people in Japan, a lot of them have chosen to become homeless. I know that sounds weird, but if you research it, there's like actually people who are just like, yeah, I don't want to work a job. This is the only way you can do it in Japan is just be homeless. And I kind of understand it. Like you have a choice to live on the street or work 12 hours a day. I might think about living on the street. Let's see here. What else do we got? Um, don't forget the guy that lost a whole prefecture's information that was on a USB while he was drunk. Yeah, there's like goofy stuff. There's like, what wasn't there another one where like the guy was on all the information was on papers and then he just left all the papers on the train and they were all stolen. Like everybody's personal information was out there too. So goofy stuff. I'm actually doing a live as I suggested. Yes, I am Angie. I hope I said that right, Angie. How long will this live stream last? We'll start to wind down soon. Um, I am shocked that we got how many? 35 people we got here. Holy cow! Holy smokies! Um, let's see. Sri Lanka has had civil wars, and a lot of countries where the suicide rate has gone up tend to have had wars recently. Ukraine and Russia. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, Sri Lanka has been in like nonstop strife. No one ever talks about it because Sri Lanka is so tiny. People don't even know where that country is. Um, I yeah, Zeno says yesterday he bought McDonald's for his family of what? Like that's four, and he said it was 1,600 yen. So like, God, in American dollars, that would be like maybe 12 bucks for a whole family. Even though Japanese yen is low, the food is also very cheap. In America, you might get paid more, but everything is expensive. Yes, you are right, Joji. Or is it? Yeah, Joji? Okay. If you order correctly at restaurants, you can get good prices, but if you make one slip up, you'll find yourself paying $20 for a pizza or a burger. Uh, yeah, and Laser says, hope your chat is going well. Great to see you. Yeah, thanks for joining. Dark Box Silent Horror on YouTube. No, I have not seen that. I'll have to check that out. Dark Box. I recently, if you guys want to check out something really weird, I recently looked into this movie called Return to Babylon about how there's like all these weird distortions in the movie. It's like a silent film. If you It's not anything that has to do with Japan, but it's like a weird rabbit hole I went down recently called Return to Babylon. It's an old silent black and white movie. and it's got some really creepy, weird stuff going on in it. But I think that's probably enough for today. Oh, the one last thing. Okay, I did want to actually talk about this. Um, how is life in America more complicated than life in Japan? This will be my final subject, and I'll end it after this. Um, so that was the number one question. I made a comment in my video that I miss the simplicity of Japan. The reason I feel like Japan is more simple is because you literally only have two big bills, I'd say, really to think about. You've got your house payment or your rent, and you got food. Um, you do have to pay for transportation, but those costs are really low. I mean, you're paying like anywhere from $1.30 to like, I mean, unless you're traveling all across Japan to get to your work and they don't reimburse you, then maybe you have an extra bill. But most jobs you work will actually pay for your transportation. So even though you do pay for that, that's not an added bill. You've got food and you've got a house to pay for, and that's it. I guess you could send your kid to private school and add another bill if you want, but for the most part, public schooling is what your kid goes to until they get to about junior high school. Every school that your kid would go to would usually be walking distance or biking distance from your house. That makes things less complicated. Being able to buy food is easier because usually you can just walk downstairs and buy food. Um, you don't have to go to the grocery store after a long day of work and try to figure out everything you want to buy because you're not going to be back there for another week again. You're like, oh yeah, we're still missing this. Okay, I'll go down there and get it. Or, oh, I forgot to buy that. I'll just walk back downstairs and buy it. That is one thing that makes Japan life really simple. Work is more organized in Japan. When I worked at schools in Japan, the schedule was made for the whole year. That's one beautiful thing about schedules in Japan. They don't change. They're just like, we're doing this now, and we're doing it no matter rain or shine, we're doing it. Which I said, sometimes that ends up being catastrophes, like with rain during a sports day, but you know when everything's going to be, and you know when you need to start practicing for it, you know when you need to start getting your students ready for it, you know when projects and deadlines are due. In America, it just seems like sometimes deadlines just pop up and they're like, at the end of this week, we're going to do this play at school. Have you trained your kids yet for it? And you're like, what, who, when did this happen? Who decided that this was going to be this week? And they're like, well, we were going to tell you earlier, but we got kind of sidetracked and tell you. And could you have this ready by the end of the week? And you're like, I guess I can do my best to make something work, but I really wish you would have given me like a month's notice, not a week's notice. Like, I really noticed this around when it got close to the end of December. Like there was like a million projects dumped on me all of a sudden that like every teacher needed me to do. And in Japan, the difference would be like if anybody needed you to do anything, they would ask you a month to 3 months in advance. So I will say that made life way more simple. I could write down a massive schedule and be like, oh, I don't even need to worry about this yet. I've already got it done way ahead of time. I don't need to worry about this yet because I've already got it done or I've already got it scheduled to get done on this time. And then as we approached, like the holiday season, I would know everything was already ready and done, good to go. And here in America, like, and I'm not just saying the job that I'm at now, I'm just saying like in general, people will drop deadlines on me or drop things they suddenly want to do at the last moment. And in Japan, you just don't do that. Like, for example, in Japan, if you even want to hang out with somebody, if you're like, hey, we should hang out sometime, they're like, hold on, let me take out my schedule book. In exactly 90 days, I can hang out on the third Saturday of that month. And you're like, oh my God, I don't think I'm even going to remember that day. But they've got every day listed out for everything that they're doing. And they will definitely show up on that day when they said they will, 90 days later for that Saturday and be ready to chill. Like in a very, in a very business-like style, they will be ready to chill. They'll be like, today is our day together. We are going to drink. And you're like, yeah, okay, I guess we can like assign things that we're going to do through the day. I was just going to kind of be more casual, but okay, sure. Yeah, they're very structured. The society is incredibly structured. you're given a uniform. You don't have to worry about what you're going to wear for the day. They've got every school's got their own shirt, and they're like, this is the shirt for our school. You will wear this shirt every day. We will give you 7 of these shirts, and you will wash these shirts and bring these shirts back, and these shirts will be the only shirts you ever wear. Don't worry about any other clothes. We'll provide them. We'll pay for your transportation. Don't worry about paying for that. Your work day is exactly the same hours that they give you to work every day. It never changes. There are sometimes you have to work a Saturday, but you know way in advance if you're going to have to do that. So I'd say the structure of life is so structured that things are more simple in the sense that nothing's ever suddenly dropped on you. And if somebody does try to do that, if someone does try to suddenly drop something on you, they they take it as their fault. They're not like, hey, I'm going to give you this last assignment. You better have it done. They're going to be like, oh my God, I am so sorry. And not only am I so sorry that I'm dropping this on you at the last second, I will help you complete this sudden task I put upon you because it is my fault. It is my error for suddenly dropping this on you. Like that kind of stuff doesn't happen in America. They're just like, oh shoot, forgot to tell you about this. Due at the end of the week. Anyway, get it done. Good luck. Um, and streets in general are like more chaotic. Like I guess I don't know if I never noticed this or this has become more of a problem since I was last in America. Why are the streets in America so dirty? Like so dirty and falling apart. Like if you drive on the highway in America, like there's pieces of trashed cars all across like the railing and everything like that. There's like tires everywhere. There's like coolers that flew off the back of people's trunks. There's like headlights. There's like pieces of cars everywhere. Like in Japan, like the highway is ultra clean. Like it is super ultra clean, and there's no potholes. There's no holes in the road. There's no big bumps. You're like they let you know like this street will exit exactly right here. It's not like when you're trying to drive to Tampa and it just becomes this like spaghetti strand of highways connected together that you're just like, what the hell's going on? Why there's like 5 different highways connected to this damn road? Like, like there was street signs that were like they were covered with black tape and stuff that it was just like we're not done fixing this sign yet. Kind of figure out where you are by looking at your GPS. Like all the signs in Japan are like super well lit. Every road is super well lit. The whole highway is well lit. Unless you get into like a really deep country road, everything's really well marked and really well lit. Public transportation is everywhere. It's always on time. And if it's not on time, your company knows probably that you're going to be late. And you can, if they don't know, if you call them and say, like, I don't know what happened, this train's like broken, they go look it up online and they're like, you're right, this train's broken. You can totally be late today. Don't worry about it. There's just no public transportation in America at all. Like that made life so much more simple. I didn't take that for granted though. I really enjoyed not having to drive. I'm not a big fan of driving. So maybe that's just on me. Maybe that's just one thing that I feel like makes my life complicated when really I should just man up and learn to be a fun driver and stuff like that. I'm a very cautious, defensive driver. I've only been in one accident my entire life, and it was because a guy suddenly stopped at a green light. So I guess that adds a lot more stress to my life. I had to drive when I first got here. I had to drive 45 minutes to and from work every day on the highway, and it was hell. And I just remember thinking like, God, I miss being able to, take out my, I guess during the time that I was living there, I had what was it, the Game Boy 3D or whatever it was, not the Switch. I never bought a Switch when I was in Japan, but I'd take that out and just play it on the train, and time would just fly by. I'd be there at my job. It felt like no problem at all. But now, I'm staring at the road. I'm like, oh my God, I got all this trash all over the road I got to avoid. There's potholes everywhere. There's like crazy drivers who don't use turn signals. I don't know why anybody in Florida doesn't know how a turn signal works. Like, what is going on? And it's just far more chaotic. It's far less structured. And I guess the good thing about that is if you do things that are far less structured, if you have your own way of doing things, America accepts that. They're like, that's fine. You got it done. Who cares how you got it done? You got it done. It's good. You good. You know, you're kind of wacky. You're kind of crazy. You're very creative with how you get things done, but you got it done. Good job. In Japan, it's like, no, we do it this way and we only do it this way and there's no other way to do it. Why would you ever imagine doing it another way? Also, it's due exactly here and it's only due here and we gave you this many months, so why is it not done after this many months? Where in America, it's kind of like, Oh, I don't know. Oh, I guess we'll assign you to do this week. Figure out how to get it done any way you want. Have fun. Like, so I guess that's the toss up between the two. Chaos, but freedom, or structure but imprisoned in a structure. Is that a good? Did I nail it? Did I do okay, Zeno? How do you feel about that analogy? Okay, let me go through the last bit of questions and then we'll end this. I've been going on for almost like I'm getting close to an hour and a half at this point. All right, let's see. Red Book by David Shrigley. No, it should be a Japanese author. I don't know who the author is. Sorry. Even though Japanese yen is low, the food. Okay, we got that. Being from Asia, how efficient and hardworking Japanese people are is admired and considered something we should aspire to. The con is the rigidity and HV. Sorry, I don't know what HV means. To be indirect, even by Asian standards. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, they're hardworking, but there's times where you're like trying to ask somebody a question in Japan and like they don't want to upset you, so they never give you a straight answer. That is annoying. Electric and water is not high either. Yeah, that's true. Electric and water in Japan is still not a very expensive bill. Have you ever been on a crazy date in Japan before you met your wife? Oh man, I have been on some crazy dates in Japan before I met my wife. We'll talk about that in another stream. If I go off on that, that's gonna take up another whole hour and a half by itself. Um, it's you're basically talking about the little things you don't appreciate until they're gone. Yeah, like fresh fish. I miss fresh fish from Japan. That's another thing. Hey Scott, much love from New Zealand. Thank you, Aiden. Did I say it right, Aiden? I hope I did. Let's see. It sounds like you're realizing how awesome Japan was. I mean, I've always said that Japan is awesome. Japan is an amazing country with amazing people. You know, there's some silly stuff that they don't get right, but you know, like I said, there's that whole if it's broken, why fix it situation. But I mean, Japan's amazing. America's amazing too. Like, I don't want to discredit America. Each country has its strengths. Like, there's some really amazing, beautiful things about America. Like, I can afford to have a lawn here and a pretty darn big house, and my kid can study in the grass and sit by a lake and watch ducks land, and ask me if the Muscovy duck is actually a turkey because he's never seen a Muscovy duck before. There's beautiful things like that about America. And people are friendly, people are nice, you can talk to anyone. If someone sees you in a bad spot in America, so sometimes they'll come and help you out too. You know what I mean? Like there's some super friendly people, and especially in Florida. Florida's got some really nice, friendly people. In Japan, it's not that they're not friendly, it's not that they're not helpful, but there's a lot of times they just don't want to get involved in your business. So when they see something going down, they're kind of like, oh boy, I don't want to get involved in that. But each country has its strength. There's no perfect country. If there was, we would all try to emulate it. But anyway, I'm starting to get completely off topic, and we've hit 83 minutes, which is this got to be like the longest live stream I've ever had. We hit 42 people watching at the same time. If you liked this today, if you enjoyed this, just me sitting here chatting with you guys, which I absolutely love. You guys are like the absolute best. Like this feels so wholesome and like such a fun chat with my friends. Just doing this is just a blast, man. Hanging out with you guys and talking and getting all your questions and answering this stuff. And kind of feels like I'm back in the old days. Really Natsukashi, nostalgic, waxing nostalgic. So thank you for that, guys. Thank you. It's like a really, kind of really just boosts my mood and everything to be here with you guys. There's some really rough days here when I'm here in America because I don't have my wife and my eldest son. And going back to this channel, making videos for it again, sitting down here with a live stream, like kind of really gave me like a boost in mood. And so it's something I definitely got to keep up because it feels healthy. It feels healthy to do. You know what I mean? It feels healthy for my mental health to come back here and do this. So let's do this again. I don't know if I'll do a live stream every single time. I'll look at what the views are on this after. I'll bet you the views for this are not so great. Live streams in general tend to be not so great. But let's see how it goes. And, you know, if you want to encourage it more, give it a like. If you're not already subscribed, I'm kind of shocked because I think I've had the same subscribers for ages. But if you're not subscribed, could you hit subscribe? If you could do me one small favor, if you haven't already checked it out, if you haven't already checked it out, Inksmith, all right, Scott Inksmith is my other channel. If you type in Inksmith, like InkSmith, like a blacksmith, but ink instead, I'm pretty sure I'm the first channel that comes up. I think there is other channels called Inksmith, but I think I'm the first one. And my newest video is called 5 Easy Steps to World Building. If you could just click on it and, you don't have to actually watch it. Just let it play in the background or something like that. Give it a subscribe, give it a like. I'm just trying to get that thing stuck in the algorithm so I can do more with like kind of the creativity I got going on back here with the artwork and stuff like that. If you could just help me out on there a little bit, I'm not asking for donations. I'm not asking for money. I'm just asking for just a couple seconds of your time to click on that channel and hit a thumbs up or leave a comment or say like or anything like that, or subscribe would be great too. Thank you so much. If you could check out some of the stuff my friend and I, Zeno, here are working on ratingravens.com. That's rating, like RAIDING, Ravens, RAVENS.com. And just take a look at what we got. You don't need to buy anything. You don't need to go crazy on it. Just give it a look and see if there's anything cool in there you like. Check it out. It's just a fun side project we have going on. It's kind of an experiment to see what kind of designs, as far as art is concerned, do the best. Help us with this sort of marketing experiment. It's fun, right? I think we've kept it like pretty low cost. We're not making like massive loads of profit by people buying those things. We just want to see like what of our designs are like the most popular amongst people and stuff like that. Nonetheless, guys, again, just a big thank you to all of you for being here. It's a blast hanging out with you guys, and take care of yourself. And oh, you can link your merchandise here on YouTube too. Yeah, I need to do that. You're right, Angie. I'm hoping I'm saying that right. Is it Angie or Angie or Angie? But you're right. I should do that. I need to find out how to do that. I'm not a technical whiz kid. I need to learn more about YouTube. I still need to study more about YouTube, even after all these years. How many years have I been on here? Since 2007? That's crazy. That's nuts. But it's awesome that I'm still here with you guys. That's what makes it so fun to do. I don't care if this channel ever gets more subscribers or if it ever gets bigger or blows up or anything. I'm just happy to be here with you guys and have fun watching you guys. And take care of yourselves, okay? I'll talk to you guys again real soon. Now let me try to figure out how I turn this off.